This is the Fifth Down NFL newsletter, and I'm your host, Tony Tucker. Each week, I'm going to pick 5 topics. It could be head-to-head matchups. It could be past stuff. It could be future stuff. Who knows? It could be gambling. But whatever it is, I'm going to try to keep it mostly positive because here we want fans to have that juice, be just fully amped up, headed into Sunday for their matchups. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to fifthdown.shop and check out some of the very cool, unique designs that we have so that you can fan out extra on. They say the time flies when you're having fun, and it is absolutely proved every year if you are an NFL fan, right? Like, it's just crazy. We're already a third of the way through the season, which we should start getting used to doing things by a third. There's 18 weeks. We're through 6. We're heading into week 7. Hopefully I carried the one properly there. We're a third of the way through the season, and it is just absolutely flying by. I've got 5 topics for you. I'm excited to talk about them. How is it that this division for the longest time is just owned by the Packers? Like, going all the way back to the 90s, it's been like this. Every once in a while, you get a good Bears team with a good defense, and every once in a while, then you get like a good Vikings team, like they'd have either a good defense or they'd have a crazy offensive talent or whatever, but mostly by the Packers. Now, all of a sudden, it feels like all 4 of these teams could be like the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's absolutely nuts. So I'm going over, I'm preparing for the show, I'm looking at things. Vikings, 5-game win streak. Lions, 3-game win streak. Bears, 3-game win streak. Packers, 2-game win streak. Like, they are just streaking right now. They are Will Ferrell in old school. We're going streaking. Now, of course, that shit's got to end because we have the big matchup, which we're going to get to later in the show between the Lions and the Vikings. But just seeing it, it's been spectacular. Like, to see these teams and how well they're playing. So briefly, I'll talk about this. If you look at each team, really, like, there's a coach identity thing that is like really shining through on here. KOC has Sam Darnold playing at an MVP level. Like, that is phenomenal coaching. All of these guys have a chance to be coach of the year. Dan Campbell coming in, setting a tone, an attitude, a culture, a mentality. And each year it seems to get stronger and more defined. And Lions and the restore the roar. It's so much fun to watch Lions. The way the Lions kicked the tails of the Cowboys last week was one of the most fun games I've watched in years. Matt Eberflus, the defense coming around, the Montez Sweat acquisition, along with Gordon playing better and Jalen Johnson being just a straight up baller out there. The Bears defense starting to get some help from the offensive side of the ball. Caleb Williams putting things together, but I'm focusing on the coaches here. Matt LaFleur winning those 2 games with Malik Willis saved their season. They're in 4th place in this division at 4-2. Like, it's the NFC North is the best division in football this year. And okay, the Bengals 2-4. This is one of those teams where every year as fans we're like, oh well, the Bengals are going to be good, and then September comes and they're not good. But last week, the Bengals defense, they owed that to the offense. They owed that to Joe Burrow. Like, they had 4 straight games where they had given up more than 24 points, and several of those games had given up more than 30. I know it was the Giants, and they were without Malik Neighbors, but that Sunday night game, the offense wasn't quite there, and I got to give credit to the Giants defense. Like, Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns are phenomenal. Like, just played a great game. But the defense needed to be in that game and keep it where it was and win that game for them. Because we can look up in 4 weeks, I think it's 4 weeks from this Sunday, Bengals get a rematch against the Ravens, and I believe that they can be 5-4 when that matchup comes. They get the Browns this weekend. That's a road game. The Browns are reeling. They traded away Amari Cooper, which we're going to talk about again later in this show. Then at home against the Eagles. The Eagles have some flaws. That's a game where I think we're going to see 2 teams and a lot of scoring, a lot of offenses taking advantage of what it is. Saquon Barkley on one side, coming back the other way, and you got Higgins and Chase and Eric All's a fun player, Yoshivas, just balling out there. I want to see the Crocodile Hunter Irwin getting involved in it, but I think they can win that game at home. Then the Raiders. Now all of a sudden they get the Raiders at home. They're gonna beat the Raiders at home. They better beat the Raiders at home. They're 5-4. They're going into Baltimore. We're gonna look up and say, like, think about this. When we look back on the Bengals, someday we're going to have conversations like, man, if the Joe Burrow era, if they could have just figured out how to play football in September, like, what would that have team really looked like? Could have potentially been the 1 seed. They're playing on a 4th place schedule this year, and they were losing games at the beginning of the season that we didn't think that they would or should or whatever lose. As fans, when we look at the schedule, we're like chalking up wins. Oh, Bengals going to be 12-5 this year. And it's like, now it's going to be a real fight to get there, but I believe they can get back to there. Bengals fans continue to rule the jungle. That was my AFC team. Here is my NFC team that I think is going to turn the table. Right now, the Rams are on the ropes, but then you look up, all of a sudden, Cooper Kupp back at practice. Oh, no. I always think that it's funny when I hear, like, oh, well, the Giants are calling about Matthew Stafford. And it's like, come on, man. They're 5 games into the season. Sean McVay cannot punt on the season like that right now. He can't give up on his boys. Now, maybe in a couple weeks, we're talking about a different thing. It's a different story. It's a different ball game. And yes, you might want to get some picks back for Matthew Stafford if there's a team like the Giants out there that are desperate enough to bring him in. But if we look at it, San Francisco's only 3-3, and the Rams already won one of those. Seahawks headed in the wrong direction. You got the Cardinals up and down. Who knows what they're going to be? So we're looking at this. Raiders this week, it's going to feel like a home game. If you've never been to SoFi to watch an LA team, the Raiders show up, they're loud. You got to take them out of the game early. Do not let them hang around. I think that they can get that done. Then the Vikings, and everybody's like, oh, well, Tony, the Vikings are hot. They can't beat the Vikings. It's like perfect time to catch the Vikings. Vikings are coming off of just a straight street fight for the division with the Lions this weekend. They get them on a short week on a Thursday night. This is the perfect time for the Rams to knock out and get a win here, get back to 3-4, beat the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. Then you're headed up to Seattle, right there, a team that's still figuring things out. Can you go up there and steal a division win? I think they can. I think Stafford can. Now all of a sudden they're 4-4 in November. They look up, Puka Nacua over there, back at practice. Kupp, Stafford, Nacua, all of a sudden Kupp's looking like 2022 Kupp and they're balling out. Whose house? Rams' house. There it is. 4th down. The Buffalo Bills made a move this week that, as somebody who picked the Bills to be in the Super Bowl this year and thought they had a real chance. A lot of people were like, oh, they didn't win last year and they didn't win when they had Diggs. There was just something about, like, when you just keep on trying, you keep on fighting, and you have a player who's as good as Josh Allen. Like, I just believe at a certain point, like, that stuff tends to win out, right? And I thought there was a real chance for them to make a deadline move. They've made it sooner than I thought. They're 4 weeks out from that game with Kansas City, and Buffalo's had more success in the regular season against Kansas City. It's the playoff games that they don't quite get there. But I think Amari Cooper is a perfect player for them. Unselfish, can beat man coverage. He's going to help, opportunities for Dalton Kincaid. Maybe like this opens up a few more things for Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakur. Matt Collins has looked nice in this offense. Like, they have the pieces to get this done. They needed that guy where it was like they were still going to win games without having a number one, but legit Super Bowl contenders with Amari Cooper there. Let's go and get into the game of the week. Vikings and the Lions. And this is one of those games where it's like, the momentum, the Vikings are at home. They're coming off of a bye. Brian Flores has had a chance to really look at the Lions offense and put a game plan together. And I think that the secret, if I was, I'm predicting the game, I am predicting the game as a fan, the way that I think it'll go, it's the Lions come out and just play smash mouth football. And they try to eliminate some of the blitz and throw it off. Because the one chance that the Vikings have is maybe they can get out to a 10, 14-point lead in this game. And now the Lions are trying to play catch up against Brian Flores, where he's going to be able to have a little bit more pressure on Goff there. I'm leaning towards the first way that I was starting to talk about this game, as to where we see a lot of Gibbs, we see a lot of Montgomery, and we see a team that is just leaning on the Vikings and being physical and they edged this game out 30-26 in one of the most fun, exciting games that we've seen. Last week's game of the week between the Ravens and the Commanders, that didn't disappoint. I don't think this one will either. I think it's going to be a great game. It's nuts to think we're talking about not just like division implications. We're talking about playoff seeding. We're talking about the 1 seed in the NFC. But let's wrap up the show. We appreciate you stopping by here on the Fifth Down newsletter. Please consider subscribing. Go to fifthdown.shop and check out a lot of the cool, unique designs that we're putting together.